$1 million a year show. I probably shouldn't say this. I don't want members of my team, like my employees, to freak out. I have never been so sure of having a God-given purpose. I am a political ageist. They culture ward their way to make shit left and right rather than top versus bottom. Welcome to From the Bastards, the part of the Philip DeFranco show where we answer questions about news, politics, business, life, and whatever else is on your mind. And to submit a question, just go to defrancomedia.com and click that link to send a voice recording. All right, so let's just jump into it.
Hi Phil, it's Kieran from Scotland. So as a cultural and news commentator in the US, I was wondering what your take was on the closure of the Stephen Colbert show by CBS. Personally speaking, watched it for years, think it's very politically motivated and hee-haw to do with money. Just want to know what your thoughts were on it, mate. Love the show.
Kieran, 1, thank you. 2, your voice just puts a smile on my face. And 3, I'm torn on it. I am not 100% in like dedicated to it has to be this one thing, but it would genuinely surprise me if politics were at least not part of the equation. What I mean by that is if Colbert and the Late Show, they made CBS money, I cannot say with 100% certainty they still would have canceled this show. And I think there's a strong argument to say that, the president of the United States possibly killing your merger, that would probably incentivize you to go, yeah, let's not try to revitalize this show and dig it out of the hole. Right, so there's that at the very least. But I also think that there is a very interesting financial story here. And a lot of this is that the whole landscape has changed. The internet is just eating mainstream media's lunch. Because there's been reporting saying that this show, it costs around $100 million to make. It's bringing in $60 million and they're losing $40 million a year. Now that said, I'd love to see more of the numbers. And also I feel like some of the numbers could potentially be murky, and I'll explain. Because you had Snopes reporting, Matthew Bellany, Puck's founding partner and author of the report on Colbert's show, told Snopes he obtained the information in his article from multiple anonymous sources with knowledge of the show's finances. Within reporting, the program has been losing more than $40 million a year for CBS, and adding that the $40 million number was subsequently confirmed by multiple outlets, including the Wall Street Journal. But then also, they added, this doesn't include some ancillary revenue or the extra money a company makes apart from its main products or services. Right, so a bit of a question mark there. And so in regards to this long-standing franchise and the changing landscape, I mean, I think there are a lot of people online, especially that create shows, that are looking at that and going, how is that $100 million a year show? Right, because while a lot of people out there are defending the show right now, and I understand why, you've also had and have people that say it's essentially like a glorified, elevated podcast. And depending on where you go online, you have those being produced for $3.99 to a few $1,000,000 a year, with a lot of them making millions, if not tens of millions of dollars a year without all that crazy overhead. And that is, some of these podcasts, they crush these mainstream shows as far as viewership numbers. Right? And that also, as many of them have been created with making money in the online space in mind first, rather than, it's more of a marketing tool to get people to watch, regular television. And so then with all that said, I am very fascinated to see what Colbert does from here. Because hey, who knows? Maybe he goes to another mainstream player, or does he make the shift online? Or does Colbert do his version of what Conan O'Brien has done? Because he has that immense fan base, he has that viewership, he has the loyalty. And so does he just do a version of what he was doing on TV, but he owns everything, he runs everything, the overhead is so small, and he'd probably make more than he's making now. But again, I don't want it twisted, I don't want to get mixed up, I don't want it overlooked. I do think, at least to some degree, politics had to be at play. It is just a question of how much. Or like 20 to 30% or 95%. And I also think we'll have a much better idea once we see what happens with this whole Trump South Park situation that popped off Wednesday night. Because I'm recording this on Thursday morning, and the White House Trump response, it's going to be very telling.
Hey Phil, my name is Andrew. I've been a fan of yours for many, many years, and you're the main, if not the only, news source that I trust, especially these days. My question is, what do you do, or how do you manage to separate yourself from everything that's going on in the world and not let it just absolutely wreck your brain? 'Cause that's a thing that I personally have trouble with, not being negatively affected in some way by everything that is going on in the world today.
Yeah, that's a great question, Andrew. And the truth of the matter is, I have a very hard time doing it. To a certain degree, I am able to compartmentalize things to a certain degree, much to the chagrin of my wife. Right? I'll come out of a, 8 to 12 hour news day and it's been news, 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 news. And my wife will want to powwow about what's happening in the world because that's what you do with who you're married to. And there was like a period of time where I was like, can we just not, I have to keep it just in this block and it can't infect this other block of my life. But also that would make me feel like I'm not a human being. And so I engage in that conversation and it's very easy to overwhelm yourself. And actually, I probably shouldn't say this. This was a secret. I don't want members of my team, like my employees, to freak out. Though I guess there's no reason to freak out now on the other end of it. But going into the 2024 election, I was gonna quit if Kamala Harris won. Wind down the Philip DeFranco show, maybe start making some sort of different lifestyle content or go back to doing a podcast like I used to do and work on the books that I've wanted to work on and just really shift where my life was. Because it is my belief that I think we would have entered into kind of stable and maybe nothing times, depending on what the makeup of Congress was going to be, if she could actually get enough votes to win. But with the insanity of everything that's happening and the uncertainty and to your point, the just overwhelming nature of everything right now is like, oh, I have to keep doing this. Both for me and this community that we've built up over nearly 2 decades now, even though I know there are people that are just kind of finding the show in the past year. And if anything, and I know this is going to hit some people's ears weird, but I have never been so sure of having a God-given purpose. And well, obviously, with me having my platform, that means a certain thing for me, but I think it's a God-given purpose for everyone, for every man and woman, especially in a time where people are being attacked and you're being told to ignore your eyes and ears, to speak truth to power, to stand up for what's right. In the words of Scott Galloway, whose this show is kind of mimicked off of one of his, it's so many people out there have confused masculinity with cruelty. And I think it's important that we protect people around us, especially the vulnerable. And so I guess to a certain degree of like how I don't let things overwhelm me and what I would recommend to other people is find a purpose. Or the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose, something bigger than yourself, especially because a lot of the cruelty and a lot of the bad that we're seeing, it comes from a mindset of me, others are hurting me, rather than what can we do together. And also understand throughout all that, there are going to be days where everything's too much, but know that that's not a forever feeling and you got to take baby steps. Start affecting the things you can actually control. As well as I think everyone should get into something physical. I hike, run, work out, or at the very least walk every day, not because of the physical stuff really, but because of the mental benefit. That's a game changer and not just something I'm saying so I can put these pictures in the video.
Why isn't the Democratic Party moving away from these old people who have been in office for forever, who are so old that they're completely out of touch with the majority of people today? They're so boring that every time I hear them speak, I want to go to sleep. People like Schumer and Jeffries, they really need to focus on getting some young people in there who know how to get people to go out and vote, who understand social media, who understand what people are going through today, instead of these people who are just so boring that they couldn't even excite a puppy.
So I'm going to rub some people the wrong way. I am a political ageist. I do not think that you should be able to run for office in this country if you are 70 or older. We age out pilots, we age out air traffic controllers, we have no fucking faith in doctors and their cognitive tests when it comes to the politicians because we think everything is shady. So I'm sorry, you lose Trump, you lose Biden, you lose Mitch McConnell, and I'm sorry, leftists, you lose Bernie. And we need to have term limits, right? 2 for president, I think 2 for Senate, 5 for the House, right? 10, 12, 8, and there's flexibility if you got the job because of whatever reason in the middle of a term. If we're constantly living in a new world with old ideas, you fall behind. How many times have you seen clips or you've watched something on the show where it's like someone that just stumbled out of their sarcophagus is like debating or talking about AI and asking questions that don't even sound like a sentence? And as far as why those things aren't going to change is because the old fucks that are in there, they're not gonna give up power. Power, I don't know if you know this, is not a thing that a ton of people love giving up. And that shit is baked in. Do you remember late 2024, AOC lost a leadership role to that 74-year-old Democrat who had cancer? And at the time, he either literally said or essentially said, well, it's kind of my turn. And then he actually died several months later. One, the Democrats at times feel like they're in this age-coordinated conga line to fucking death. And so that's why I often, not universally, because just being young isn't a fucking prerequisite, but why I often find myself supporting her on the side of younger people who are trying to get in and shake things up and change things up. There is a lot to be learned by people who have been in those positions for a while and they've made networks and they've figured out how to coordinate things. but at a certain time, you're just taking up that spot. And so in a world that's changing, and really more than ever, I think it benefits us to have a Congress and just leadership in general that is at least closer. Like, I believe the Senate median age is 64 plus right now, but the median age just in America is 38, 39. But anyway.
Do you profit from the podcast version of the show? I specifically watch on Apple Podcasts. Do you profit from that the same way you would a YouTube view?
Okay, Kurt, let's talk money. Watch or listen to the show wherever is easiest for you. Always, always, always. You can get the Philip DeFranco Show on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And same with the interview podcast, In Good Faith, you can watch on YouTube or listen and watch on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And while right now I don't think that we do auto-insert ads on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and so we wouldn't make money that way. And while on YouTube, obviously, there's AdSense as long as you don't have an ad blocker on. Do not stress it. One view does not mean a thing. And the most of our money comes from sponsorship. I would say the breakdown is sponsorships, then Beautiful Bastard, and then AdSense. I built out a whole boutique ad agency. It started for YouTubers and then also extended into podcasts. And we're even talking internally about having like a podcast network where we can help people get ads and stuff. But that's been kind of where most of the money is. So never stress that. And then also for the creators or just anyone interested, if you're in the news space, sponsorships or paid memberships, that's going to be kind of the bulk of your money. But if you get into the TikTok partner or whatever the hell program they call it, I think they, for the most part, I don't know if this is everyone else's experience, they'll cap you at like $600 a day, whether you get 1.5 million views across your TikTok or like 20 million. It's just like, oh, by the way, this is what the amount is. And with TikTok, you may not have noticed this. At any given point, you could just lose your monetization. It just happens, and then you try and contact people, you get no support. And then with YouTube, there's a bigger demonetization problem, though I do feel like there's been some sort of change over the last year where it's less of an impact. So it does appear like more and more people can count on AdSense there. But outside of holiday season or certain specific moments, like when the Switch 2 got released and just YouTube was throwing all these like paid reserved ads at people, sponsorships will end up bringing in way more money than anything AdSense could, unless you're, one of these YouTube freaks that does 50+ million views on YouTube, like per individual video. At that point, you're bringing in so much money through AdSense that it may be more than sponsorships, because a lot of companies only have certain amounts of budget per quarter. And so that's why when you look to someone like a Mr. Beast, for the most part, and this is not universal, the only way that he's going to get paid his true worth, like when you start comparing TV dollars to this, is for him to profit off his own companies like Feastables. Because I've heard some of the behind the scenes of the money that's being offered to sponsor a Mr. Beast video, and it might have changed over like the last 2 or 3 years, and this did not come internally from Mr. Beast people. It's the conversations that happen with the marketing and agency side people. People were getting discounts, in my opinion. But yeah, that's too much information about a thing you only kind of sort of asked about.
I don't know if this is going to make you feel old, but I'm older than you were when I started watching you in middle school. I'm now 28. How does it feel to be like one of the longest standing YouTubers from like the original select few that are like still thriving and doing well? Because I feel like a lot of YouTubers, they'll last maybe a couple of years and then they'll kind of fall off, but you've kind of maintained an audience and have, evolved your brand. You went from Lovely Lady of the Day to, real news. And curious, like, what's kept you on your toes? How have you evolved? How do you keep evolving? What tells you that you need to make changes when it's time to make changes for your business model?
That ended on a really interesting note. So I will start by saying the biggest motivator in life is being or having been poor. This country shits on poor people because the people in power have convinced a portion of the population that, yeah, it sucks to be poor, and we shit on the poor people, but there's a chance that maybe you won't be poor, and wouldn't you like to just like reap in so many benefits if you could pull that off? They culture warred their way to make shit left and right rather than top versus bottom. But I started YouTube because I cared about the news. I wanted people to talk to about it, and I was lonely. And then throughout the early years, I started chasing views, and it became about, pop culture rather than politics, and hot girls rather than hotly debated topics. And then in 2016, who knows why? I mean, it could have been for any number of reasons. All of a sudden, people started caring about politics again. And then all of a sudden, I could talk about politics and my views wouldn't plummet when I would do that. You know, I think I do the best version of the show, kind of like I think people do their best learning and best production when they're doing it with something that they care about. Have you ever tried to read a book that you're just not interested in, like it's being forced on you? It's impossible, or at least for me it would be. I try to read the same page over and over and none of it would stick, but then you click with something or you're interested in something and you're blazing through it and it's sticking and you're thinking about it. So I think when I do the best version of my show, I'm doing it because I'm creating it for me. And I don't mean me as the creator, I mean me as if I was the consumer. And as far as what tells me when I need to evolve or change things, sometimes it's just me wanting to do something different to make myself a little more stimulated. And other times, you know, it's us looking at how is the show doing algorithmically? And so while it's an incredibly different audience, I think there's a lot to be learned from shorts and TikToks. When you upload there, you get into all these different feeds that you wouldn't have gotten into if you just kind of uploaded YouTube long form. You can just throw out more there, see what people are interested in, because you're just popping into people's feeds. What's the ratio of views to likes to shares? And as far as, you know, what signals do I get that I need to evolve or change things, a lot of it just comes down to I need to feel personally stimulated. I just started doing From the Bastards because I saw Scott Galloway doing Mailroom and I was like, oh, I love that sort of interaction with your audience. That sounds fucking awesome. And then for the In Good Faith podcast I just started, I've always loved talking to people. I'd had a podcast in the past, right? The A Conversation With, you know, that scratched an itch for a while, but then I realized, you know, I didn't want every single person to come on to have to be some online influencer. Though with In Good Faith, there's going to be an online influencers. A lot of them are going to be more in the news and politics and culture updates sort of space, as well as, you know, politicians. And I think then through that, having specialists on and experts on. And, you know, at the end of the day, certain things are going to work and certain things aren't going to work, but every good thing in my life has started from, well, I just need to try it now. And some of it, you know, inevitably falls off. And then others is a fucking 18+ year running show. And I think part of the reason that I haven't burnt out like a lot of OG creators, I mean, I was one of the first, I think, 100 people that were monetized on YouTube. I had the motivation early on, and then later in my career, I had the dedication, and I knew who I was and what I was trying to do most of the time. And like many things human, I feel like I'm this fucking walking contradiction of knowing my worth and my value and my purpose, and at the same time, thinking of myself as just some dumb schmuck from the Bronx.
You always ask like what we get out of the news show, right? You're like, I just deliver, you know, a big dose of negativity to you on a daily basis or whatever. And I guess you could look at it that way if you want, but I don't know. I feel like you can't undervalue what the PDS show brings to us on a daily basis. Have you ever had a really shit pharmacy, you know, just a dog shit pharmacy? The type of pharmacy where you go pick up your, like, I don't know, birth control. You probably can't relate to this, never mind. But birth control or Plan B or something, and they give you, like, I don't know, a treatise on Jesus or something, or abstinence, or God help me, I've heard horrible stories about, like, people running into anti-vaxxers who are working behind the pharmacy counter, and I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on? I don't know. As compared to going to a pharmacy that you can, like, actually trust, and they're just going to give you your goddamn meds and tell you what you need to know in relation to the goddamn meds, and then be done with it, you know? It's just a huge fucking difference. It's a huge difference getting your news from a place that you can trust on a regular basis, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I don't have a lot of time, but I just wanted to say hello and thanks for the PDS.
That does mean a lot. I pride myself on trying to be the least horrible place in the horrible place. I'm not going to hold your hand and tell you it's going to be all rainbows and sunshine no matter what, but I will hold your hand. And I'll tell you that shit's fucked, why it's fucked, and ideally whenever I can to say, well, and this is the way potentially out. But what I will say is that does mean a lot. There have been times throughout my career where I've looked in the mirror and gone, what is the fucking point? And then I hear or see a comment like that, or I bump into someone in the real world and they share their experience with the show and their history with it and what it means to them, and I'm right back there. The main thing, to all of you watching, listening, thank you for being a part of this weird thing. But hey, with all that said, let me close with a few things. One, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the first episode of From the Bastards, your brand new weekly Friday show, where together we can dive into news, politics, business, life, yours or mine, and whatever else is on your mind. 2, you can submit your own question at DeFrancomedia.com, or I'll also link to the link tree, which makes it easy. And 3, I'll see you right back here on Sunday for your final video of the week at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. You'll love it, I love your face, and I'll see you back here then.